Good afternoon. Welcome to Match Day. I'm Vince, and we have Ian back with us. And hopefully today we have Vicky Hall. She's left the room, but hopefully she's going to try and get back on. So today's kind of been a Murphy's Law day. But thank you all of you for being on, and hopefully we get Vicky here in a minute. But we're going to talk more about the business of returning to play as opposed to protocols, because we've had a few of those already. So, Vicky, can you hear us?
So what's interesting, Vince, is as people are getting back on the road, it's harder to get guests. And I think Vicky's driving to or from a training, a return to play training. So that's part of it.
Yeah.
So we'll see if we can get it. But for the guys that joined us, we were talking to Vicky off air about the state of return to play in Virginia and the difference between Northern Virginia football, soccer, and Southern Virginia, where they've had some potentially different protocols. We were also talking about if she has seen any gender differences in the enthusiasm for getting back. And we also talked about how their club did with the PPP. So we've got a picture of Vicky. Can we hear Vicky?
Hey, I'm here.
Okay, excellent.
Oh, good. Hey.
So, great.
Okay.
So a good colleague from down in Florida, Julie, who's with the Hobe Sound Soccer Club, English woman that works with Brighton Hove Albion, is on here to listen to you. So that's good. And I think everybody now, as Vince was saying, we've talked a lot about X's and O's and how you physically separate kids at the training sessions, but we've been wanting to talk to you a little bit about some of the business implications, the finances and things like that. So can you tell us a little bit about what the state of return is in Northern Virginia in terms of the tryouts and how much contact you can do and that kind of anarchy?
It is anarchy. So we kind of went from 0 to 100 in probably the past 24 hours. Virginia is open in phase 2 starting tomorrow. We've already had clubs around us that are out on the fields doing different stuff. We will return, or my club will return next week. Obviously, we're working on exactly what that's going to look like in terms of cutting the field up, who's going to get to play, how we're going to get to sanitize things, how we're going to keep kids separated and all that sort of stuff, which is a potential logistical nightmare. And obviously the older kids is probably a little bit easier because they obviously understand what's going on, but the nightmare could be those younger guys. Like, how do we get them back on the field and how do we keep them as safe as we can? Obviously, folks, we're not putting any pressure on anybody parent-wise or coach-wise to come out. It's all within everyone's own comfort level. If a coach comes and says, hey, look, I have a baby at home, I don't feel comfortable doing this, then fair enough, we're not expecting them to do it. And the same with the family members of younger kids, we're not expecting or forcing them to do it either if it's something that their player may or may not really have a full grasp on. So it's been a bit of a challenge logistically. Field space, we're waiting on the county to give us fields. Like, how many fields are we going to have? So how are we going to be able to divvy up those fields to make sure it's as equitable as we can to get everybody out? So right now I think we're leaning towards one session a week between 45 minutes and an hour, purely based technical stuff, nothing past that. Limiting the groups to like 6 or 7 kids a group. And cutting up the field. I can't remember the exact dimensions of what we're going to cut the field up. There'll be hand sanitizer there. There'll be hash marks for each kid to place their water bottle. We don't want them bringing a ball. We don't want them bringing a bag. There'll be no pennies used. The cones will be sprayed down after every session, and there'll be a little bit of transition time between each session to make sure that Group A is being gone, cleared off the field before the second group can then come on. So all of that sort of stuff it's a logistical real nightmare. Like, parents have asked them ideally to stay in the car. If not, then they have to stay outside the lines and really not encroach on the field space. And for the most part, I believe people will respect that. But we'll wait and see. There's always one.
I know it's early days, and in an ideal world, we talk to the kids about competing with the opponents in the competitive environment. But certainly, there are times when we're competing against other business entities, right? So the clubs that you're with, they're recruiting players, they're renting fields and things like that. What does it look like so far in terms of the different ways the clubs are approaching it, and how that affects you competitively when you're recruiting and doing tryouts and things?
So right now, it's people are still competing and still recruiting kids, which is a little unfortunate. We'd have liked to have been able to say, hey, look, guys, here's the situation. Let's just cool our jets for this year, let kids stay where they are, and then, you know, pull out all the stops again next year. But people are still forcing kids. So initially we were under the impression that there was not going to be any tryouts, but phase 2 came pretty quickly. So we thought there would be no tryouts. This is how it was going to be. We were asking kids to send in virtual tryouts, which was videos and whatnot. A couple of gems in there, I'm not going to lie to you. But unfortunately, no, it's still, people are still, clubs putting pressure on kids like, hey, you know, we're a bigger, better club. Come and play for us. You've got 48 hours to give us your answer. And it's like, well, hang on a minute. You know, you haven't seen me play. You don't know, but people are still falling for it and jumping, which has kind of surprised me a little bit.
Yeah. So I'm going to turn it over to Vince in a second, but I just sort of randomly asked you off air about what are the current sign-ups and enthusiasm, and you said there's a pretty staggering disproportionate response from the boys relative to the girls. Yeah,
so at our current club, the girls program is a little bit bigger than the boys by I'd probably say maybe 50 kids, maybe more than that. And right now we probably have 3 times the amount of boys registered for tryouts than we do girls, which is huge. We can't definitely say that this because of COVID, but that's kind of where I'm leaning towards. We've always been I think that's kind of part of my issue. We've always been a really female-heavy club in terms of our players. So it's quite interesting that now at this current situation, this is what we have.
Yeah, I mean, when I think about, we've talked off air, or on and off air, about the little kids, right? So the 5-year-olds are going to have a different social interaction than the 17-year-olds.
Yes.
But when you do get into gender issues, maybe in that teen years and stuff, how the girls maybe want to interact at training and what the comfort level of parents is can reasonably be different than the boys, right?
Yeah. You see when you pull up to practice, the kids haven't seen each other. All they want to do is hug and touch each other, and it's like, you know, let's not do that. Or we're gonna have to spray them with Lysol. So yeah, it's just the females, right? We're just a different breed. We're a little bit more lovey-dovey than our male counterparts, and that's something that has to come in. Like this, we've put out to the kids that you cannot do that. There can be no, you can't. Don't even high five. Don't even think about touching each other. You have to maintain your distance, just to protect everyone. Because that last thing we need is one of you guys coming down with something, whether it be on the soccer field or whether it be at Walmart buying, you know, dish soap. We can't have that, take that chance.
Sure.
And I'd like to think for the older kids that'll be an easy thing. For the younger kids, I think that'll definitely be something that'll be a bit of a challenge.
Yeah. Vince, you got one?
Yeah, first off, Vicky, again, thank you for being on. And I'm detecting a little bit of an accent. Can you tell us your journey and how you kind of got here?
Yeah. How long are we on for?
Just a few more minutes. We're good.
So I am originally from Scotland. I was born and raised in Glasgow, and I came out to the States to. I was going to join the police force back home, and I was told I needed to have more life experience. So I got working for a company called Britannia Soccer to come out and do summer camps.
Okay.
And I was very fortunate. I spent 12 weeks in Texas, and I was offered a scholarship at a small school called Northwood University just outside Dallas, Texas. And I got a full ride, and I played there for 4 years, played every minute of every game. And it was an unbelievable experience. I had a few people tell me that I should have waited. I had a few friends that came over and went to bigger schools. And for me, I made a mistake, and I should have gone to a bigger school. But I had an unbelievable experience that I can't thank those folks enough. And then I got a job working for another camp company based out of Virginia, and I was with them for a few years before I got a job working for Loudon Soccer in Virginia, and then it kind of snowballed from there. I worked for them for almost 10 years, and then I went to a different club called PWSI to be their director of youth development and then their girls director of coaching. And then I went from there to a smaller club in Northern Virginia, which is a smaller club in Northern Virginia, still 3,000 kids. to be the technical director there and oversee all the programming that they have there. So I've been very fortunate in my travels.
Yeah, no, very good. And Vicky's also a member of our United Soccer Coaches Education staff, and she's also a grill instructor. And she was in the same class as I was, and she was definitely one of the best presenters there, I felt. And
You're a charmer.
no, it was great. But there's a few questions, and we talked earlier about like you have like protocols in place, right? The parents have to go online, have to fill out stuff, right? Even before they can get on the field.
Yeah, so that's what we're putting together, where it's almost like an agreement that folks are going to have to go online before every practice to agree that they're going to adhere to the practice rules, which are keeping your distance, hand sanitizer, not trying to touch each other, and that your temperature is well within, or your player's temperature is within what the expectations are of what that kid's temperature is. It's not 105.
Right.
And you're just using general common sense that if it peaks or they're not feeling that great, then you keep them home. So we're just doing that just to make sure that everybody understands, like, here's what our guidelines are, here's what we're trying to do. We're trying to protect your kids. So please follow these rules and everything will go along smoothly, hopefully. But it's kind of like, it's almost like the common sense thing, right? When you have kids and if your kid has a fever, you don't send them to school. So it's the same thing here. If your kid has a fever, they're not feeling great, please don't send them to practice.
Yeah, common sense. So there's a couple questions in the chat box. One is from Samantha, right? Samantha Snow, who I'm pretty sure, who is a queen. She says, is there any disparity in the number of tryout registrations between the different age groups that you know of?
Yes. Our younger age groups are very light, very light. And the older age groups, I mean, across the board, we're very light from where we usually are. We're probably about 150 kids shy of where we usually are. But the younger kids are definitely lighter than usual.
Yeah, no, it's an unfortunate thing about, all this, it's just that there's an unknown, and, then they're talking about a second wave, like we talked about in the fall. Right. So, I
think that's a big part of it. We have asked for people to come in and put down a deposit, and it's like, well, hang on a minute. We didn't get a spring, and now you're asking us to give you more money, and potentially we might not get that back, and we might not even play. So it's hard. Like, from a club perspective, these are things that we have to do to stay afloat. And from a parent's perspective, I get it. Why am I going to give you more money? Yeah. So it's hard. Like, we're in a tough situation right now where we're trying to find the right way forward for the club, but it doesn't answer everyone. So,
right.
Casey had I'd like to get you've just covered Samantha's, right? So the little guys are slower. So Casey has a question about the renting and sharing of community fields, and I'll chime in from my experience. My gym reopened about a month ago. Very good isolation policies and all that good stuff, but when you go in now, as it's starting to open up more, you're working in a station that somebody did their class in before, and you're almost like watching to see how well they clean down the equipment before you enter that space for your turn. And so one of the things I think, Casey, the challenge is you manage and do everything right within your club, but if it's a shared facility, if you don't own the facility, you can't control all of the other users. And I think that should be a stressor. So it probably does mean shorter training sessions. In my gym, we have shorter gym sessions because we spend 10 minutes preparing the equipment and then 10 minutes sanitizing it afterwards. So I would be definitely, Casey, much more concerned, or much more vigilant if I was in that shared facility space than obviously if we managed it.
Yeah, fortunately for us right now, everything's going to be outdoors, which I think is an easier sell to people. If it was going to be indoors, then I don't know if I would feel comfortable asking those kids to come until, things that we really have legitimate answers for what's going on. So I think being outdoors, I think, is a little bit better.
Yeah. So, Vicky, I have a question. Sorry about that. The grounds crew decided to mow. They always do right at this time. So you're in charge of a club. You're in charge of coaches, right? Coach education. There has to be some training, right? Because this is a whole new ball game for us, right? Are you doing that? How are you preparing your coaches for all this?
So what we've decided to do is, so usually what we do is we put on our coaching education, we give them ideas of different ways to do things. So now what we've, and kind of let them go with at their own pace, right? Here's what, as a coach, this person's comfortable teaching coaching and how they do it, obviously within the parameters that we've set forward. What we've decided to do now is we're going to limit their activities. They're going to be specific activities that we have chosen. Those are the only ones that they're going to be able to work from, just so it keeps everyone safe. Whether that's the right thing to do or not, I don't know. But I think for us, I think it's easier for us to say to the parents, hey, look, here's what we're doing as a club. Everyone's bought into this. These are the activities that we're going to do, and here's why. And I think that people will understand that a little bit.
Yeah, good. Yeah, but go ahead, Ian. I was trying to read the chat box.
Julie down in Hope Sound in Florida said that in a week they've already had kids going to multiple club tryouts, right? So the parents and the kids are shopping around. Andrew from Culpeper Soccer Club in the CCL says hi, by the way, Vicky, and congratulates you on being DOC for the girls. So that was nice. Okay. One thing I was interested in, because I know Julie works in a high position in her club, Ian McCallum, certainly, Samantha. You applied for PPP, right? The payroll protection, but you're one of those clubs that was still in the 1099 world, right? You hadn't got them onto staff yet. And most clubs were pushing towards that, although it's a drag to have to do workers' comp and to make them full-time employees. That's where we were being driven to. And now that's actually biting you a little bit that you've got 1099s, right?
Yeah, so that was something that, as Gunston, is what we had been trying to do, it was part of our plan going forward this year that we would bring everyone on as staff, and we didn't get there, and obviously now this happened, and it really bit us in the backside that there was no help available for us as a club to go out there and get support for our coaches, and unfortunately it came to a point where it was tough. It's like, keep the club afloat or pay these guys. And that decision had to be made at one point. Like, hey, we either have to keep going and be able to keep a roof overhead and offer our programs and stuff for folks going into the summer and hopefully going into the fall, or pay the guys that work for us. Yeah. And unfortunately, for the most part, most of our guys have other jobs, which was great. Had this been a lot of people's full-time gig, like it's my full-time gig, had it been some of our guys' full-time gig, that could have been a bit of a disaster.
Yeah.
And it's something that I would definitely have lost sleep about. I still lost sleep about it, but it definitely would not have sat well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. Well, Vicky, you've been gracious with your time, and I know you got to get into another meeting. So we appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to be on with us. And honestly, just kind of shedding some light on another area that we really haven't covered yet. So thank you so much for doing that for us.
Yeah, I think the age and gender thing, whatever, there's obviously we need more science than the three of us just chit-chatting, but the fact that you're seeing such a great disparity in the ages and the gender, I think is a discussion down the line.
Yeah.
Because
I'd like to see in a couple of weeks what that looks like. Especially now that we've opened up into phase 2, will that make people feel a little bit more comfortable?
Yeah.
Or I don't know. I'd like to a couple of weeks and just see exactly what's happening. So
good.
Really interesting stuff.
Very, very informative, Vicky. Thank you so much for taking time to being on. And I know you got to zip into that meeting, but
thank you guys.
But thank you so much. And for those tomorrow, hopefully, we have Bobby Muse from Wake Forest that's going to be on tomorrow. And then we have another version of TGIF. And then just an announcement, next week we're going down from 2 a day to 1 a day. So just a heads up there. And hopefully some of you will still come on. So thank you very much. Thanks, boss, for being on.
Thanks,
and thanks, Vicky, so much. Thank you, everybody.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.